This is the Miller Philosopher, and this video is now going to be on Huor of the House of Hador. And actually, this is an addition that I made to explore Hurin's younger brother, because I felt that essentially that what happens to Huor and his immediate family within the larger family of the House of Hador kind of plays off of that of his brother, Hurin. And to neglect one would be to neglect the other in a way, if you get my meaning. Also, too, and just without an expectation here, the relationship between Huor and his brother is a lot like, I think anyway, what you see in Boromir and Faramir, if you want a reference point for that. Now, honestly, Huor is one of the harder ones to do, and there's going to be some speculation here and theorizing, because quite frankly, there's just not a lot to go on that Tolkien ever wrote about him in detail, like he did with the character of Hurin. And I suppose that's because that despite him being the father of Tuor and the grandfather of Elendil, the man himself apparently didn't warrant as much character development, which kind of sucks in a way, no offense to Tolkien. But it also wouldn't have been the first time that Tolkien had written up a major character whose importance lies solely in their lineage rather than their individual actions. Now, that being said, what can be gathered about Huor is that he was the younger brother of Hurin and fought his first major battle around 13 years old. He also grew to be taller than his brother, ironically, and this is actually a family trait overall. Despite this, though, he is still always mentioned in Trail of Hurin, not exactly as an afterthought, but you can almost argue with not much agency either. The one moment where Huor is specifically mentioned on his own merit and actions is during the closing days of the Arneath, where while defending King Turgon and his soldiers who were retreating, ended up prophesying on his own volition that their children would spawn the salvation of Beleriand. That Huor often followed after his older brother is no great surprise either. They're brothers in war, after all. And the Edain, as an overall culture before the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, were known for their tight kinship bonds, even between the notoriously isolationist Halidin at that point in time in its history. However, his name in Sindarin also means fiery spirit, and if taken in the Noldor context, it also means vigor and courage. So, by this, I take it that Huor may have followed Hurin in their adventures, but it wasn't out of a sense of weakness or some kind of submission. I would almost rather say that they were both very much alike, so that it was a co-decision, with Huor only deferring to Hurin in matters of great importance, as he was the younger brother, even though he was also the taller brother. And while his name can imply fiery spirit, I also get the impression that Huor may have also been actually the more cooler-headed of the Sons of Hador. Now, I'm basing this assumption off his relationship to Rian, who he marries later on, who was a pacifist at heart, and was so devoted to him that she went to go look for him on the battlefield of the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, despite him already being dead. Now, let me ask you this real quick. Why the devotion from Rian if she didn't see something that she liked in Huor in the first place, especially after he is presumed dead? And what would a pacifist of all people find anything appealing in a warrior, especially a warrior of the House of Hador, which was pretty much famous for being warlike people? As well as the confirmed fact, of course, that Huor is also not named as one of the mightiest heroes of the First Age, which also kind of sucks. But that title instead goes to his brother and his nephew. Many of the characters that Tolkien writes as great warriors seem to share this trait of being ill-tempered and very trigger-happy. Fëanor, Fingolfin, Iarnir, Boromir, and the race of dwarves are general examples of this. Rather, Huor and the rest of his line, for a large part, were known for keen insight in critical moments, as well as battlefield skill, but went beyond that. And this takes nothing from Huor at all. It was just a different type of renown, I guess you can say. Moreover, going by what the Silmarillion says about his son's arrival at Gondolin years later, Huor made apparently quite an impression during his stay there, as it played a large part in the Noldor of Gondolin's acceptance of his son years later as one of their own, despite being mortal. And in my own headcanon, I can almost see Idriel, Turgon's daughter, being somewhat drawn to him, but just not necessarily romantically. And this would explain why she was so drawn romantically to his son, who would have been some resemblance to him. And again, that's just my headcanon, nothing gross there. That being said, what can be certain is this, is that Tuor was extremely loyal to his family, even going off to war while only 2 months recently married, with a pregnant wife. And while I don't think this was out of any disrespect to Rianne, his wife, because it is implied that they did love each other greatly, that Hurin and Huor were brothers in arms and war as well as blood. All their battles to that point were fought together, and there was just simply no way in hell he was going to let his brother go off to war in what was supposed to be the last great offensive of the Beleriand Wars, one that his brother may not come back from. And these are the ideas that came to mind when I looked at Huor as a person and as a character in Tolkien's books. But if you have anything to add or disagree with that, let me know in your thoughts below. And this is the Middle-earth Philosopher. Have a good day.